Have you ever noticed how sometimes you get yourself into a really good groove of something that actually matters to you? Maybe it's like a routine or a project or a side hustle, or maybe it's just a habit that feels right. And for a while, you're doing it consistently, like you care deeply about it, and everything's working out just as it should. But then something happens. Maybe someone makes a comment, or maybe life throws something at you, and suddenly this thing that meant so much to you ends up slipping to the back burner. Before long, it's not a part of your life anymore. And it's like weeks go by, sometimes months, sometimes years go by. And eventually you find yourself looking back like, man, I wish I could get back into that thing. I wish I could do that thing again. It would be so cool. But for some reason, you never really do you? And the more that time passes, the heavier that regret starts to feel. It's like you have something unfinished and an arc of your life that was supposed to play out, but it never did. A story that you're meant to live, but somehow you lost track of it along the way. If you've ever felt like this, you know how much it can eat away at you over time. And this shows up in so many different parts of life. For some people, it might be something like the gym. Like there was a time when they were in really good shape, working out consistently. And even though they were working themselves to the max every single day, it didn't even feel like it was hard. They didn't have to think about it. It was just what they did. But now they're kind of stuck in this limbo where thought of starting it again like feels impossible. Maybe for other people it might be like a relationship. Maybe you were once deeply connected to your partner. The conversations flowed, you felt super close, but over time the spark kind of went away. Now you feel like you're living with a stranger instead of someone that you feel like you're in a relationship with. Or maybe it's something creative, like maybe you used to play music or you used to write, or maybe you used to play guitar or film videos. And now you can barely remember the last time that you picked up that guitar, or the last time that you opened that notebook, or the last time that you sat down to edit the video or something. And that's the thing. We look back at those times almost with the sense of nostalgia, like, wow, I was really onto something. I was happy. I was aligned. But now that thing is gone. So the big question is, what's really happening here? Why do we so often lose the lose track of the things that make us feel so alive? And what I've realized is at the root of all of this is identity. So think about it. Think about asking someone, like you say, hey, so tell me about yourself. What do you do? That first thing that they say usually reveals how they see themselves. Like they may say something like, I like to play music, or I like to make videos, whatever it is. Whatever that answer is, the first answer that comes up usually kind of comes from their sense of identity. But then if you ask them like, okay, so what do you do for work? A lot of times that answer doesn't line up. Like this thing that they identify with isn't what they're actually spend their life doing. And that's where the problem begins, I think. I think that we trade who we really are for what's safe, for what makes the most money, for what looks acceptable to our friends or our family or society. We stop living from our true values. Now, whenever I say values, I don't mean those big abstract words like you see on a corporate mission statement. You know what I mean? Like I remember one time I was reading this huge company's little brochure and they had a mission statement and it said something like integrity, honesty, and innovation. And it's like, okay, cool, but what does that even mean? Those could mean 1,000 different things to 1,000 different people. What I mean when I'm talking about values are the things that you naturally do without discipline, the actions, the priorities, the things that feel effortless to you, the ones that you can't help but to do, even whenever life is like dumping on you. Those values are directly tied to your identity. They're who you are beneath the layers. When you ignore them or push them aside for too long, that's when life starts to feel empty. But here's something that most people don't realize. Your values don't just shape what you do, they actually shape what you see in your world. So here's an example. A few years ago, one of my friends bought a white Jeep Wrangler. And up until that point, I'd never seen Jeeps on the road or anywhere at all. I didn't care about them. But the moment that he got one, it was like all of a sudden they were everywhere. It seemed like I couldn't drive a mile away from my house without spotting another white Jeep. Now, obviously, it's not like the entire city suddenly went out and bought Jeeps overnight. What changed was me. my brain started filtering reality differently because Jeeps had value. They were relevant to me. That's how your perception works. Your brain is bombarded with all this information like every second. There's millions of little sights and sounds and sensations that you have, but your conscious mind can only hold on to a tiny fraction of it all at a time. So your brain has to filter it. So what does it filter it by? It filters by what you value. That's why two people can walk into the exact same grocery store and see two totally different worlds. A new mom might see baby formula and ingredients that are like safe to eat or something. A business owner might notice the product placement. He might see how certain items are placed at the right places in the store, and he might think, oh, that's going to increase their sales. And if you have someone that's like a musician, they might miss all this and notice the song playing on the speakers. That's why they say that you shouldn't go grocery shopping whenever you're hungry, because you'll end up noticing all the junk food and end up buying stuff that you don't need. So the world doesn't show up to you as raw data. It shows up as meaning, and that meaning it's determined by what you value in each moment. And here's why that matters so much. Because if your life is out of alignment with your core values, you won't even see the opportunities that could bring you meaning. They'll be invisible to you. But when you're aligned, whenever you're living out a life that's according to your highest values, your highest priorities in life, suddenly the world starts lighting up. The doors that you couldn't see before start opening. Life begins to feel alive again. So why do we lose touch with those values in the first place? Most of the time, it's not because we don't care enough or because we're lazy. I think it's because of outside influence. And unfortunately, it seems that often is the people that are closest to us. It's like our family, our partners, our friends, and society at large. They have this way of quietly steering us towards the safe path, the path that feels acceptable and predictable and easy for everyone to understand. So here's an example of what I mean by that. A few years ago, many years ago, like over 10 years ago, there was a time whenever I was like all in and I wanted to become a personal trainer. I was training some clients online. I was studying. I was really pushing myself in the gym. And the person that I was with at the time wasn't comfortable with that because they didn't like the idea of me spending a whole bunch of time coaching other women and texting them about their workouts or helping them with their form or whatever. And I'm not trying to tell this story to throw anyone under the bus or blame anyone. That's not the point. The point is that those comments got into my head. I slowly started pulling back. I wasn't chasing my dream anymore with that same energy because it felt like I was doing something wrong. And before long, I wasn't training as hard anymore. I wasn't studying as much anymore. And eventually, I let the whole dream that I had been working towards, I let the whole dream go. And obviously, this doesn't just happen in relationships. Like you could picture another example of a kid that like loves working on cars with his friends after school. Say he's in the garage every day. He get like every chance that he gets, he's tuning engines and fixing up old parts. He's just completely in that world. But let's say that one day his dad makes a comment. He says, "Son, there's not a lot of money in fixing up cars. Maybe you should think about working on something that would make you more money and be more stable." In that situation, the dad's not trying to be negative, obviously. He's saying that because he loves his son and he wants him to succeed. He's given the best advice that he knows how to give. That's part of the problem, isn't it? We listen to the people that we love because generally it's a good idea. We listen to the people that we look up to. And before we know it, we're trading the thing that made us come alive for the thing that makes everyone else feel comfortable. And that's what happens to so many of us. We let those voices that are around us, that influence us, override that voice that's inside. We put other people's comfort ahead of our calling so that we don't feel selfish or guilty or like we're rocking the boat for some reason. And the cost of that is huge because every time that we ignore what's true for us, we trade a little bit of who we really are for who someone else wants us to be. And over time, that's how we lose ourselves. And whenever we lose ourselves, that result that we get is depression, that kind of feeling that makes everything in life feel meaningless. And It sort of reminds me of that scene in Alice in Wonderland where she's running alongside the Red Queen, and the Red Queen tells her, she says, "Here, it takes all the running you can do just to stay in the same place." And that's exactly how so many people live their lives. They're working as hard as they can, running full speed every single day, but it's in a life that they don't even like, a job that they don't even care about. They're in a relationship that doesn't inspire them, or living in some place that they don't want to be. And no matter how fast they run, it's like they never feel like they're making progress. And that's where the depression begins to set in. I remember there was a video once that I watched with Jim Carrey, actually, and he was talking about depression. And he said that he had a mentor that once told him, if you're depressed, what that really means, it's your body asking for deep rest. It's asking for deep rest from the character that you've been playing in life. And I think that's exactly right. That depression that you might feel, it's often a message. It's your mind and body saying, hey, you're off track. You're not being who you really are. You need to stop, rest, and realign with who you really are. In this way, you could say, depression could be seen as like a signal. It's a red flag that's pointing us back towards a life that follows our highest possible calling. So here's a question. Why do we do anything at all? Like, why do you do anything that you do? Take work, for example. Let's say that I asked you, why do you go to work? You would probably say, well, I need to make money. And let's say I say, okay, fair enough. But why do you need to make money? You say, so I can pay the bills. And I'm like, okay, right. But why do you have to pay the bills? You say, so I can have a place to live, some stability. If I keep asking those lines of questions, the why, eventually you run out of these surface level answers and you reach something deeper, something along the lines of, so I can build a good, meaningful life and create a life for myself and the people that I love. At the top of all those reasons, of those questions of why, is your highest priority. It's your highest calling. That's something that the ancient Greeks called your telos. It's the ultimate aim, the deep reason behind everything else that you do. It was Aristotle that came up with this, I think, and he believed that everything in nature has a built-in purpose. It has a direction that it's trying to move towards. I think his example, the classic example, was of the acorn. It already has the blueprint for an oak tree within it. No one has to tell it what to become. It just knows. Given the right conditions, the right water, the right sunlight, right time, it unfolds naturally into what it was designed to become. And I think that people are the same way. We each carry something like that blueprint, a telos, a certain instincts and values and drives that have been trying to express themselves since the very beginning of our lives. Sometimes we feel those things as like a quiet pull or a tension that's like there's something in there that we're supposed to be doing, but we just haven't quite stepped into that yet. And you can see that early on in the way that kids play. It's like, why do kids play pretend anyways? Why do they play house? Why do they play cops and robbers? I think it was a French psychologist, Jean Piaget. He studied this, and what he found is that kids don't just play for fun. They are rehearsing something. So whenever kids play cops and robbers, they're exploring justice and power and morality. Whenever they play house, they're trying on family roles. But they don't know that they're doing that. They don't sit there and think, I'm going to explore justice today, or I need to practice family dynamics. They're just doing what feels natural. They're following an internal blueprint that they haven't got words for yet. And that pattern doesn't disappear when we grow up. We still feel drawn to certain things. We still get obsessed with things. We spend energy and time on things that we can't always explain to ourselves because there's something trying to come forward in you. And that's why if you keep asking those why questions long enough, you hit a silence because it's too deep to just articulate in words. That's your highest calling. That's your telos. And you don't invent that thing out of thin air. It's not there to make up. It's something that you remember. So Carl Jung had a name for this process. He called it individuation, that journey of becoming who you truly are. And what he said is individuation isn't about building some sort of fake ideal self. It's about actually peeling back the layers and rediscovering what's already inside you. Because like I said, we all carry this internal blueprint. And the more that you ignore it, the more that life starts to feel fragmented, like you're just playing a role in someone else's story that someone else wrote for you. But when you uncover that highest calling, when you start aligning with the parts of you that were buried underneath all the obligations or all the fears, all the programming, that's when you stop feeling like a character in someone else's story and start becoming an integrated, sovereign individual, a real person, not an NPC. So if this blueprint or this telos is already inside of you, then the question becomes, how do you actually uncover this thing in a tangible and practical way? Well, you could think of it as like a sculptor working with a block of marble. They're not adding pieces to it. They're not gluing on pieces of marble and stone. They're chipping away carefully, precisely, until the figure inside reveals itself to the world. So finding your highest calling, finding your purpose is the same process. You don't find it by stacking on more goals or forcing some grand narrative of becoming someone that you want to become. It's found by removing what isn't true, chiseling away all those little false fragments of identity that you took on just to survive. And you keep on doing that until what's left is the real you. All those layers of programming, of what society told you, what your parents expected, what you even told yourself that you had to become to just make it through. That's what has to go first. And often you'll see this in your patterns, the things that you keep circling back to, the things that you can't seem to walk away from, no matter how many times you try. So like I was talking about a little bit earlier, for me, one of those patterns was the gym. Years ago, I was working in Oklahoma at this party rental company. And if you've ever been there in July or August, you know how humid it gets. It's like super hot. We'd be hauling all these chairs and tables into box trucks, like dripping sweat for 12 hours a day. By the time we would clock out, it would be like you'd be exhausted, and most people just want to go home and relax. But for me, I cared about the gym so much. I had this dream of becoming a personal trainer. So I'd slam a quick pre-workout, I'd chug some Gatorade, and I'd head straight to the gym. No one had to convince me of anything, because underneath all the exhaustion that I felt on the surface, the gym felt like it was the thing I was working towards. It felt like home to me. I was becoming a personal trainer, and I didn't care how tired I was. That value was carved into me. And that's the thing. You don't need discipline to live out your highest calling or your real values. You almost need discipline to stop yourself. And that's the clue. Those things that are your obsessions, the things that you return to again and again and again, they're trying to tell you something. And so one way to begin that process of figuring out what your highest calling are, what your highest values are, is to begin asking better questions. So here's what I've done for you is I put together a sheet down in the description of this video, totally free for you to use. I call it Uncovering Your Internal Compass. It's a set of questions that are designed to help you peel back those layers so you can start hearing yourself more clearly. It has a whole bunch of questions like, how do you naturally spend your time when no one's forcing you? What do you spend your money on without hesitation? What makes you light up in conversations? What keeps coming true in your life, no matter what you try to do? It helps you find what you've been potentially missing and puts it right in front of your face. When you reflect on those things and you do it honestly, a pattern starts to form. You see a shape, a direction. And the more you pay attention to it, the clearer that it gets, until eventually that version of you that you've buried and that's been there all along starts to come forward. So I hope that you use that document. It's down in the description of the video. So I think that's all for this video today. But look, most of us aren't really lost. We're just buried. We're buried underneath other people's expectations, buried underneath what society told us was practical or right, underneath the rules that we thought we had to play by. But the real you, that real blueprint, just like the acorn, it's still in there waiting for you to answer that call. And that call is simple, but it's not easy. And the call is, stop living for the approval of others and start uncovering your own highest purpose, your own telos. That doesn't mean that you have to throw away all your responsibilities. It doesn't mean that you stop caring about the people that are around you. It means that you stop abandoning who you are at your core. Because whenever you align your life with your true values, you become someone you can actually give more. You become someone who can actually give more to the people around you. And I think that that's what it means to live with purpose. All right, so that's all for today. Hope you enjoyed the video. Feel free to like, share, subscribe, all that sort of stuff. Follow me on Instagram if you want to. It's the same name as the YouTube, The Aaron Morris. And I'll see you guys next time.